Hello everyone, my name is Justin Klein, and today I will be giving you a summary of the article titled Hyperspectral Remote Sensing of Wild Oyster Reefs. So in this study, they were investigating the invasion of the wild oyster along the western European Atlantic coast, which has caused many problems in ecosystems. It's considered an invasive species and a trophic competitor to the cultivated conspecific oyster, which you can imagine give many oyster farmers a headache. Also, in these areas, spatial distribution maps of wild oyster beds are required by local authorities to help assist in defining management strategy each season. The population could fluctuate greatly season to season. They used to do this by traditional ground surveys. Someone would go out and map it themselves by hand, which could be very time consuming, expensive, and require extensive labor. And also the authors knew that they would have a problem where there are vertical oyster reefs and horizontal oyster reefs. If you look at the figures, you can see the horizontal oyster reefs will have a higher reflectance than the vertical oyster reefs, and also much sedimentation, mud, organisms could kind of get wedged in between these vertical oysters, which could throw off their classification readings. Some of the methods they used, so the study area was in the Borfnof Bay in the French Atlantic coast. They used a HIPEX sensor, which consisted of 160 spectral bands, and a spot satellite, which has 3 spectral bands, and an in situ spectral library used for the spectral angle mapper, which gave them the spectral signatures of the surfaces they were going to find here on the oyster beds. So some of the findings that they determined with this study, spot imagery was ultimately canned. Just didn't have enough spectral resolution, and came out as a pretty pixelated product. The horizontal oyster reefs were correctly classified. However, with the vertical reefs, it proved to be less efficient because of the deposition of mud, microalgae, other organisms that tend to live on top of these oyster beds. And they also found that oyster biomass cannot be directly determined with remote sensing due to all the variables. And they suggested either a combination of remote sensing and field measurements. And he also discusses hyperspectral imagery with radar imagery. Here's the methodology kind of flow chart here. Spot 5 was, as you can see, was not adapted. But here you can see the flow of what they did. They used the hyperspectral imagery to find horizontal, vertical oysters in the microalgal belts, and ultimately come up with a stock assessment. And here you can see the difference of imagery. And D is the 3 bands, the spot, and C is the hyperspectral. And you can see that D is much more pixelated and C is much more accurate in determining what surfaces are present. So they concluded that we should be using hyperspectral data in combination with radar imagery to get more accurate oyster stock readings. Also, they wanted to investigate the microscale spectral features in a laboratory using the HiSpecs camera to improve classification accuracy. And also, subtidal reefs need to be classified using some kind of sonar technology. Thank y'all and have a great day.